differences between court and finance are now resolved. Therefore, this revenue can be recognized in the month received instead of the 1 month lag previously. Special highway revenue was up $7,500, mainly due to the state increasing the connecting link maintenance allocation by $2,000 per mile when compared to a year ago. And as suspected, due to stay-at-home precautions, residential water in April water consumption was up 38%, with business up 10%. This translates into a 17% increase in combined water revenue when compared to a year ago. And year-to-date, water and conservation revenue is up 11%. A couple of notable areas of decrease in revenue. Capital projects was down $289,000 due to the receipt of prepays on the Heart of America and Kingsgate special assessments at this time last year. And transient guest tax was off $208,600 simply due to timing of the receipts of those. Expenditures in April totaled $1,924,632. That's an increase of $204,000. Some notable areas of increased expenditure. Airport improvement expenditures were up $21,775 compared to a year ago due to the runway 16-34 markings project. Bickles-Schmidt Sports Complex new equipment increased $10,800 for the purchase of a 14-foot tandem axle dump trailer. That trailer eliminated one seasonal vehicle from the complex, which was then sold on Purple Wave. Outside agencies for CVB expenditures rose $21,500 compared to 19, due basically to the timing of the payment of those allocations. Finance professional services was up $27,300 for payment of the partial completion on the audit. New equipment reserves increased $11,500 due to the purchase of a grasshopper mower for the water plant. And new equipment in stormwater management was up $46,800 for the purchase of a slope mower. One notable area of decrease in expenditures, health insurance for employee benefits fell $143,000 as 2 months premiums were paid at this time last year as a result of the timing of that billing. Month-to-date general fund sales tax collections, this is April. Month-to-date general fund sales tax collections were at $584,015. That's an increase of $52,900 or 10% as compared to last year. Year-to-date collections are at $2,557,088, up $153,000 or 6.4%. The 6-month average is at 8.59. That's an increase of 5.6% when compared to a year ago. The report of top 10 quarter-to-date sales tax collections by classification was up $121,365 or 6%. The largest categorical increase in there was in new used car dealers, up 20%, and building material garden supply up 17%. The portfolio of certificates of deposit on April 30, 2020 totaled $53.05 million. With a weighted average interest rate of 1.79%, that's down 67 basis points from a year ago. Total of the U.S. Treasuries at par value was $1.477 million, with a weighted average yield to maturity of 1.59. Total balance of the money market account on April 30 was $9 million, with a current yield of 5 basis points. And that balance is in anticipation of the payment that we sent to Kdot for the Northline Corridor. Total investments are up $2.777 million when compared to a year ago.
I make a motion that we accept the financial report for April 2020.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions?
I have a couple questions. Projected for May, how much did we, I guess, look at budget of decreasing in projection, I guess?
We've received those numbers. May, which would be March receipts. And if you remember, we're about...
Just to clarify again, I'll probably ask this for 4 straight years. These are April, but these are February.
February
Right.
collections.
Yes.
Okay.
2 months behind on sales tax collections. So April is February actual collections. The May report will reflect March collections. We had projected being down 20%. We ended up being down 3.5%. So we're pretty happy with that.
Very
now,
exciting.
taking into consideration that that's only a half a month of the restrictions there. So the month after that, the month that's going to have the April collections is going to be the telltale, I think. We had projected, I believe, 30% down on that.
Sometime in July when we hear those numbers.
Yeah.
The other question, or just clarification, on the court cost, so we're starting to see those numbers currently. So then, because it's no longer trailing, next month we'd see that essentially drop off because we've collected them on the current statement.
We're always going to be comparing to a year ago, so we made that change this year. So I probably won't bring that up anymore because it was a financial change. I wanted to bring it up now, but what I can do is adjust it so that we can compare what court costs are really doing compared to that same time a year ago, I guess, if that's what you're after, if that's what you mean.
We hope they go down. Right.
Right.
And with court costs, though, with the shutdown, weren't people allowed to delay paying court fees and fines and tickets and such for 30 days, 60 days, something like that?
I'm not aware of that.
I don't know that.
I haven't read that either.
It was on utility payments.
Yeah,
But I think some of the hearings were delayed, weren't they?
they had fewer, but they never did completely shut
Oh, they
down
did, okay.
court at all. But they did, I'm sure they had a decline in the total numbers just because we had fewer encounters with
Yeah. Anybody?
citizens.
Yeah, we are definitely projecting those to be down as well. That's one of the other significant revenue sources in the general fund, and we're projecting that to be down.
So Kim, is it too early, you look at here, supermarkets, convenient liquor stores, we were up 8%. Is it too early to see how much they've been up?
The ones that you would expect to be up were up, and the ones that you would expect to be down, such as restaurants and the like, were down. So
Okay, gotcha.
when I did that comparison, and I'll have that in the next report, but when I did that comparison, it followed what you would expect. The department stores were up.
Right.
Grocery was up.
Liquor stores were up.
Yeah. But still, you said 3%?
3.5% down. We had projected being down 20%, so we're happy with that.
That's awesome.
That's a $100,000 swing.
That's just what I was going to say. That's $100,000 that you were, as you started the budget process, were not planning on.
Correct.
So even if we are where we're planning to be for April, we're still ahead of the ball game. 100,000. I mean, look at his face. He has a smile on his face.
As long as the next few months don't trend worse than what we're
Right,
projecting.
right. No, I was pretty excited to hear that. I think that's a really good number, a really good indicator, I hope.
I think we still got a plan that it's going to be down, but if we see that kind of bucking the trend, that'd be really nice.
What I guess seeing the light at the end of the tunnel or the silver lining or whatever, we've got a little time before that budget is due, so we can
Make it
bring
better.
that projection along and change those estimates as we need to.
Anything else? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0. Citizen comments?
We're taking under advisement, and that clean audit is because of my staff, Lori Hurdle, Brenda Kitchen, Jamie Bright, Rachel Albin, and Shanna Coster. They make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed every day, all year, that every penny is there. That's what makes this report work. And so,
And I think you
And-
should take credit for the leadership of that team.
thank you.
Great
but,
job by everybody.
They're in the trenches, and they make it happen.
Thank you, Kim.
So Melissa.
Well, good evening.
Welcome.
I'll probably just start with what Kim had said. I'm going to have you guys flip open to page 1 of the audit report. As you get there and everything, I just wanted to say Kim and his staff are very accommodating when we're here. He answers questions even when we're not here. They're very timely on getting information back to us. They're very timely on getting information to us in order to prepare your budget. And to us, that's something that's very important. That way, we do have the opportunity to give a clean opinion. We don't have to hunt things down or anything like that. As you look at page 1 of the independent auditor's report, I'm just going to, I see a few new faces on the commission, and so I just want to kind of back up and just tell you. So the City of Hayes has an audit report because of the Kansas statutes that require you to have one. And basically it's what we would call a compliance report, meaning it's done at a specific point in time. And so the audit report is, as Kim had indicated, as of December 31st of 2019. An audit is not a detailed, we do not look at 100% of the transactions. We actually plan the audit program to look at things that would be maybe material to us, and then we look at things that we wouldn't look at each year, which we call unpredictable. And so, no, we did not look at 100% of everything within the audit report. But we looked at the material items in order to give a clean opinion on the audit reports and to ensure that the financial statements are fair and present fairly the financial position of the city of Hayes. And so basically pages 1 through 4 of the independent auditor's report, that is what it says. The other item to call your attention to that I know you're probably aware of is that your accounting report is done underneath generally accepted accounting principles. And so that means that everything is recorded. All of your accrued payroll, liabilities, your general obligation bonds, all of those are recorded within the audit report. And all of your assets are reflected on here. And as you go through it, that also means that within this audit report, there are 3 separate sets of financial statements. The first set that you see will be the government-wide financial statements. And that basically brings every fund together and breaks it out into what we call governmental activities. And the governmental activities are your general fund, your special revenue funds, your capital project funds. Again, some of the funds that Kim had mentioned earlier when giving the presentation over his April financial statement. The second one is what we call the business activity funds. And just as you would think those are your utility funds, they're also called proprietary funds. And it depends upon what statement we're looking at, is a little bit different terminology. Then the second set of statements right behind this government-wide financial statements are actually what we call the generally accepted accounting principle statements. That means, again, everything's booked, but instead of having all the capital assets of the city in there, the governmental funds just report the governmental funds. And then finally, the very last set of the financial statements, which you will see in detail every time you take a look at the 2021 budget as you go through those budget pages. That right there is what we call the regulatory basis financial statements. And again, those are what you look at to make sure you're in compliance with your budget, the revenue that you've collected, and that really is the statements that you use to make up your 2021 budget this year. Okay? And as Kim had indicated, we do the first opinion is just on the audit in general, and so it's an unmodified opinion because you applied the accounting basis correctly. We also give 2 other opinions within the financial statements, and we give an opinion on what we call the financial statements in and of itself. And again, that's an unmodified opinion. And then the city has some federal programs that go on, and so we gave an opinion on the passenger facility charges out at the airport, because again, that is required by the federal government to be audited. And as indicated, those are all unmodified opinions. Unmodified means clean, and so that's what you want to see. Adverse, if it was adverse, is bad. You wouldn't want to see that, okay? Just to put it into perspective. I'm going to have you flip over to page 5. Within your financial statements, this is called the management's discussion and analysis, and this is actually written by the city of Hayes, and Toby signs it, your city manager signed it, and so it's their recap of what they believe happened through the year 2019 and what they saw that's important for the citizens to know. Okay? I'm going to flip you back to page 11. And this evening, we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're just going to take a look at the government-wide financial statements. The other financial statements in the back pages, you really see those on a day-to-day basis, so I'm not going to take up your time with that, but if you have a question, we'd be happy to answer it. I'm going to have you look. It's going to be, you have a couple component units within the city, and the one that we include within the audit report on the right-hand side of the page is the Hayes Public Library. The other one that we do not include would be, it's the City of Hayes Public Housing Authority, and so we do not include that one. It does have a separate audit report, and under Kansas statutes, it is part of your financial statements to make them whole. But again, it's not misleading by not having them in here. So if we take a look, I'm going to have you look at the very bottom where it says total assets. And so when you're looking at it, you would like for your total assets to at least be equal to last year or to increase. And this year you went up by 17.8 million. And part of that, or the majority of that, is due to the wastewater facility being updated and actually placed into service. And so that's what you're going to see here. If you go ahead and you flip over to the next page, this right here then, if you take a look at it, and you look at the bottom, these are your total liabilities and what we call deferred inflows of resources. So that's all your deferred property taxes receivable that you're going to collect within the next year, your general obligation bonds, everything that the city of Hayes would owe anybody at this point in time at December 31st. And if you look, you'll notice that you're at 57.3 million this year. You went up by approximately 9 million. And again, that is the debt that that the city had with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment on the revolving loan that you had, KDHE. And so again, we expected that. Otherwise, you've held constant on the debt and been able to pay it down. If we take a look at the very next page, this right here is what we call the net position. And so if you were a for-profit business, this right here is a snapshot of where you set out what your retained earnings per se would have been at the end of the year. So this really is the investment that the city of Hayes has. And as you look through it, you'll see that you've got a net investment in capital assets. And so those are your capital assets you've placed in service, less the debt on them. And so that went up to 120 million from 110 last year. And then we have a budget stabilization fund, which had been placed in service by prior city commission. And so those funds have not been touched in the last year. And then we just have some what we call capital improvements and debt service. So those are set aside for next year's expenditures here in 2020. And then you have your total unrestricted, which remained fairly consistent at 51.2 million, which again, if your debt increased a little, then that's what you're seeing here. Are there any questions on these first 3 pages?
Can you
Yes.
explain, I know you're just on the capital improvement, so it's 92 in 2019, but it was 221 in 2018?
And what page is that on?
On 13, I'm sorry. On the, I got my lines, capital improvement. Am I looking at that right?
Yes, you do. So in the capital project fund, you had some capital improvements last year of 221,000. You've actually paid off most of those capital projects, so we would expect that to decrease.
Okay, gotcha.
You're reserving those funds for a project that you have ongoing.
Gotcha, okay. Thank you.
Is there anything else? Okay, I'm going to flip you back to one more page. This is page 14. This one will kind of match a little bit of what Kim's report started with April. If we take a look, this is your statement of activities. And I'm going to have you look at the very left-hand column. At the top it says expenses. I'm going to have you go clear down to where it says total primary government. And the number you're going to be looking at is $30,065,782. That's the total expenditures that the city of Hayes had last year. And that also includes depreciation on your assets. So that's the total of what was expended through everything, debt service, all that, okay? In order for the city to be able to fund and to pay those expenses, then we have charges that we collect, charges for services we collect within the governmental funds and also through the utility funds. And so those numbers go in to help us reduce it. And then we have some capital grants or contributions, which are small, about $79,000. And so if you look, we collected about 11.1 million of other revenues or charges to help retire that. And if you go third column from the right-hand side of the page and you look, you'll see that then the expenses that we haven't covered by charges to the city is 18,897,496. And then so the city has other funding, or what we call general revenues, that you use to retire these expenditures. And if you slide down, you're going to notice that in those assets that make that up, or those revenues, would be property taxes, your sales tax, franchise tax, some motor vehicle fuel taxes that you get in. You have some other unrestricted interest income, some miscellaneous. So at the end of 2019, you had actually collected $23,104,930. So that means that you were able to put back into your unretained earnings or back into your net position $4,207,434 to build up, and that goes in and helps carry you into your 2021 budget. And so as you start to talk on that, if those numbers would go down, then sometimes the budget looks a little bit different, as I am sure that city staff has already indicated to you. Do you have any questions? Okay. If you flip to the next page, I'm not going to bore you with a ton of numbers, but this is the financial statements that I had talked about, generally accepted accounting principles. These break it out now into what the governmental statements are. Following that is what the utility funds would be. And again, most of these numbers you've already seen as you reviewed probably the year-end report, so there's nothing unusual there. Starting on page 25, for some light reading, since I heard that you guys like that, these are the notes to the financial statements. And from here on back, there are several pages in that describe the significant accounting principles or policies that the city uses in order to get to your financial statements. Behind the notes to the financial statements, then, you will find the regulatory basis financial statements. And again, those are what you look at when you're preparing the budget. Those have your unencumbered cash that you will see going forward. We're not going to go over those numbers in detail because, again, you've seen them. But if you have a question, we would be more than happy to answer it. And if you don't have a question tonight, you want to look it over and you do have a question, let Kim know. We'd be more than happy to come up here and visit with you and address anything or show you where we came up with the number at or where the city, how they came up with that number.
Are you going to go over the audit recommendations, Melissa?
I assume maybe they were sent out, but I can run over them. The one we just had a couple recommendations to improve some internal controls. And again, we came up and we went over those extensively with the city staff. So I feel like they've been addressed. I don't know if Kim has something he wanted to add.
The one on utility billing procedures, that was simply not having a signature. We were reviewing them, but we didn't have a signature on them. They'd like to see that signature there. The fixed assets, we're going to have to sit down and go
That's
through
the one I was wondering
that
about.
entire list of fixed assets. I agreed with Jamie and while they were here that needs an extensive review to make sure the things that are on the depreciation schedule that shouldn't be need to be pulled off. And we've been doing some work on that over the year. Anything over 5,000 we get on. Anything below or sold for 5,000 we take off. But some of the things on projects in process, I have to get with John and by year end talk about what's still going, and so that we're booking those correctly.
I would just ask, after you do that, you make some comments about it, what you found and what you're going to do differently?
I'm sorry?
That after you review that whole section on the fixed asset piece, would we benefit from any comments from you after you do that?
I can certainly do that if you'd like to hear.
Do you
about
think
that.
it would benefit us? I see a no there. That's okay. I'll let you use your judgment.
It's some of the stuff that you get into the weeds on.
Yes,
If you
yes.
want to be in the weeds with us, we'll go in the weeds.
I don't like the
with you.
weeds. I don't been in the weeds too many years of my life. Whatever you think is appropriate.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? If there's not, at some point, we always like the audit report to be approved. The state of Kansas actually does get a copy of the audit report, and it is on the website, so let us know and we can take care of that.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Very,
And
I
thank you
appreciate
guys
how
for
you
everything.
present it. It's very good. We really
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
We need a
Please.
motion to approve the,
I move we accept the 2019 audit of the City of Hayes as presented by Adams, Brown, Beer, and Ball.
Seconded.
A motion and a second. Any more comments? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, ladies.
All right, next item on the agenda, 230th Avenue and 55th Street intersection improvements, KDOT agreement. Mr. Brand.
Good evening, Commissioners. John Brown, Project Manager. And this item deals with the improvements to the intersection of 230th Avenue and 55th Street, just north of the I-70 exit 157. In 2013, Ellis County applied for and was awarded economic development funding from Kdot, which eventually amounted to $1.5 million for improvements at this intersection. The proposed development of the Hayes Truck Plaza project prompted the annexation of property and right-of-way in the area of the Kdot Economic Development Project. And in December 2019, the Ellis County Board of Commissioners requested that project sponsorship be transferred to the City of Hayes. At the May 14th City Commission meeting, tax increment financing, a CID, and developer agreement were approved in support of that truck plaza and of the 230th and 55th Street project. The economic development project covered under the KDOT agreement on tonight's agenda includes grading, pavement, curb and gutter, storm sewer, sidewalk, pavement markings to improve 230th Avenue from just north of the westbound I-70 ramps to approximately 1,300 feet north of the 55th Street intersection, and improvements to 55th Street from 230th Avenue to approximately 800 feet to the east. To formalize the responsibilities of both the City of Hayes and the Department of Transportation, KDOT has provided an agreement to be executed by the Mayor and by the Secretary of Transportation. Key elements of the agreement include that KDOT will reimburse to the city 100% of the actual costs of construction up to $1.5 million. The city must submit to KDOT verification that the development necessitating the project, that being the Hayes Truck Plaza, is underway by December 31st, 2020. The city or developer is responsible for having the project designed in conformity with state and federal design requirements. The city will solicit bids and let the contract for the project for construction to the lowest responsible bidder in concurrence with KDOT. And the city, through the developer, will provide construction engineering inspection in accordance with the state and federal regulations. So the project is currently in the design phase for a fall 2020 bid opening, and construction would begin in the spring of 2021. The city has no monetary contribution to this project. Any costs exceeding the $1.5 million KDOT grant will be covered by D&J Land Development under the development agreement approved at May 14th meeting. So your options are to authorize the mayor to sign the agreement with KDOT, or direct staff to another option, or to do nothing. And the action requested is on the screen.
Move we authorize the mayor to enter agreement number 121-20 with the Kansas Department of Transportation for the 230th Avenue and 55th Street project.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any comments?
John, is that a one construction season estimate on the building of that?
Right, yeah, that would be a 1-year construction season on that KDOT project. No, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on up there with different projects that could overlap, but this particular, the KDOT project, the 1.5 million is a 1 year.
1 year, okay, thank you.
John, do we have any indication how close the estimate will be to that $1.5 million?
Right now, I believe the estimate is somewhere between 1.7 and 1.8 million. So we do expect it will be over the 1.5, but the development agreement and the developer agrees to cover that extra cost.
And that number has been shared with the developer. I mean, we're not
Yes,
gonna be bringing any
yes.
surprises. Thank you.
No surprises to them.
And I think you talked about this last week, that original estimate, that was a few years ago, correct?
Right.
So it's increased naturally.
KDOT's fast tracking the 157 bridge project. Do you know what their timeline is and along with this one?
I don't, I really can't speak to their timeline. I know that they're soliciting design firms, engineering firms to actually do the design, but I don't know their schedule.
I guess some clarification on the background a little bit, just out of curiosity, I guess more than anything. Ellis County was awarded this in 2013, but that was prior to any kind of truck stop development, correct? What was, do we have any idea of what their intention of having 1.5 million for that section?
And like I say, there's probably lots of opinions, lots of stories. My understanding is that at that time, a lot of it was driven by the commercial or in industrial development that was up in that area already with Hess Services and the condition of the road just to the north of that intersection of 230th and 55th Street, because of its narrowness, the hills, the poor sight distance, and wanting to address that. And that project does address some of those issues in that area, but to a limited extent, whereas the Northwood
So
Business Corridor
they were
would be-
applying for it to improve at that, what at that time was a county road.
Right.
And by being annexed, now it's a city, and then we essentially asked that the awarded funds that they got for the county then be applied to us as a city to improve the same road that they were already going to do.
Right.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0. Next
Thank you,
item-
John.
Yep, thank you. Next item on the agenda, ordinance terminating the Home Depot Transportation Development District, TDD.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kim Rupp, Director of Finance. The current Home Depot Transportation Development District includes Home Depot, IHOP Hampton Inn, Town Place Suites by Marriott, and JT Travel Plaza. A 3/4% CDD sales tax in that district has been in place since April 1 of 2005, garnering approximately $3.2 million for Phase 1 and a portion of Phase 2 improvements in that area. The 3/4% outperformed initial projections, and therefore the 2004 TDD bonds financing Phase 1 improvements were called early and completed in January of 2018, saving approximately $356,000 in interest costs. Most recently, the Commission approved a portion of Phase 2 improvements, which included extending East 41st Street past Home Depot to the Vineyard Park entrance. That project is now complete, and the TDD sales tax collected since the payoff of the TDD bonds was sufficient to reimburse capital projects fund for the improvements. Therefore, it's now time to terminate the Home Depot TDD sales tax of 3/4% by passage of an ordinance. To be clear, the TIF still remains in that area. Those bonds are being paid by the city's portion of the tax increment financing, as well as the half-cent of the city's general fund sales tax in the district. That was all agreed upon back then. Those bonds are scheduled to be paid out in 2024. So to do that, we would ask that you pass that ordinance this evening.
I move to approve ordinance number 3985, terminating the Home Depot Transportation Development District and TDD sales tax.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Kim, I just want to be clear, I know I asked this last week, so when this is terminated, October 1, it will go down, sales tax out in that area will go down 75 cents, but then go back up 50 cents with the county tax that will go back on.
Correct.
Any other comments? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda, North Vine Street Corridor Project, authorizing general, obligation bond financing.
Again, Kim Rupp, Director of Finance. As the North Vine Street corridor gets underway, and due to the fact that expenditures up to this point have already occurred, it's necessary to authorize geo-financing for these improvements by adopting a resolution. The Main Trafficway Act, KSA 12-685, allows for financing certain main trafficway improvements with GEO bonds using a two-step process. The first of that process was designating that as a main trafficway, which you did a couple of weeks ago. Second step of the process involves adopting a resolution authorizing GEO bond financing for the project. And pursuant to an agreement previously entered into between Kdot and the city, Kdot will administer construction of the project, and the city will provide a portion of the financing. That was that 7.1 million we wrote. The city plans to initially pay costs with available funds from capital projects and later reimburse with proceeds from the general obligation bonds. We're expecting to issue those in late 2020 or early 2021. At such time, the commission will consider an ordinance authorizing that actual issuance. We'll come back to you with all the information after those are bid. And then the debt service of that is planned to come from the transient guest tax. Pretty simple, kind of just a housekeeping deal. There's a look back on those expenditures. That's why we have to approve that now and can do the actual issuance later.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 2020-012, authorizing general obligation bond financing for the main trafficway projects.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Kim, I have a question since we went over the audit tonight. Does this, receiving not this right here, but with this around the project, how does that affect differently on the audit? Any different what you've done, or does it with receiving the funds we got from the federal government? Is it any different than what we would get from the airport or anything like that?
No, there likely will be, trying to run through my head where that 7.1 million comes from. There's likely a single audit requirement on that, so it'll add another page or two into the audit that, for 2020.
Okay, I was just curious. Any other comments? Yep. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ken.
Next item on the agenda, progress report. We got progress.
Good evening, Colin Belzer, Assistant City Manager. For the progress report in Public Works, the newly purchased slope mower has been delivered and it's already been put into action, and the guys are enjoying it very much so.
Did we get to drive that? That looks kind of fun.
Let me talk to the city manager. They also installed a pedestrian crossing near 27th and Sherman. This was done in-house, and it cost the city approximately $9,000 for all the materials. We updated the website for our Unified Development Code to kind of correspond with our branding changes. This did require staff to work with the company Encode, which provides the website for our UDC, or Unified Development Code. The fire department, they are partnering with the Kansas Fire and Rescue Training Institute on a pilot program for the Fire Officer 1 course. It's a pilot in the sense that it's a virtual course only. It's the first course taught like this in the state. It's all online. The fire department has a tradition of really education and improving skills, so this is something that KU is excited to partner with Hayes on. What it is it's when a firefighter is wanting to move from the firefighter status to a lieutenant or something a little higher. Parks and green spaces, we planted approximately 38 containerized trees in the parks. Massey and Auble-Bickle received aeration and they were fertilized. We continue to spray the pine trees for pine tip blight. You can kind of see a tree on the right, which shows the effects of that. We spray more than 500 trees, and so there'll be a third coating in June. They also put down some erosion control and netting on some public works projects. I know last month I think we talked about the 39th and Willow with the tube, and then the service division put it in the wing wall. So they've gone in and planted grass and the erosion netting on those two areas. In IT, we updated the GIS plat layer. So with recent recorded annexations and developments, what we are doing now is we're able to scan those in, and when you go to the GIS system, if the plat's available, you can click on the parcel and then you can actually pull up the plat for the property. It was National Police Week, May 10th to May 16th. As you know, Mayor Musel signed a proclamation designating it as Police Week, and May 15th is Peace Officers Memorial Day. And then on the left side, there's Sergeant David Velising and Officer Ryan Blecka honoring fallen officers with a missing officer table and reading. They also conducted SSRT training. It was for entry and breach point tactics. They do this about once every month. They do some sort of SSRT training, and it looks like fun occasionally. The Water Resources repaired a break on the effluent line and service line to the golf course. The break was about 18 to 20 feet deep where the line was, so it did take, I think, more than a day to reach that and do it safely. We installed a new meter at the Pepsi bottling for 4-inch. We threw that in for you, Sean.
They get to sauna water now?
They also are applying biosolids to agricultural fields. So biosolids is a byproduct of our wastewater treatment plant system, and it needs to be applied to, or it needs to go somewhere, and it's applied to agricultural fields because it's obviously a natural fertilizer. We also had the water poster contest. The ceremony did take place, but the winning posters are displayed at Tri-Central Office Supply, where they're going to be there through June 1st. Holly Dickman recorded Mayor Musel along with watershed specialist Stacy Minson announcing the winners on Facebook, and that has actually received, the video has received over 6,000 views.
Not because I was
The CVB hosted a Hayes Bison promotion. That received a reach of over 48,000 on social media. The winners were Covina and Daisy May.
That's cute.
Melissa Dixon was also inducted into the Fort Hays State University Chapter of International Hospitality Management Honor Society as an honorary member on April 28th. In project management, you might have seen this on Vine Street. J-Corp completed installation of a new 16-inch gate valve and fire hydrant along Vine Street. This was approximately 11 feet deep water line. It's the circled image. They also conducted some settled joint repair along Main Street. This is what kind of caused us to shut down block by block for about a week, May 11th through 14th. You can see on the left kind of that line, if I know how to run this, going down the middle of the road. They took out the brick and repaired it, and you can see the after picture where that settled joint no longer exists.
They did a great job and speedy job. Very much appreciated.
It was about 200 linear feet. We'll pass that on to them, by the way. City Hall Alley, you probably saw this, obviously, coming here, but they repaired the west half of the City Hall alley. It was 8-inch concrete pavement driveway. It cost approximately $48,000. This was part of the 2020 street maintenance program. Also, the poly patch occurred, which is it's mostly in areas of asphalt streets that are 10 to 25 years in age where thermal cracks have opened. This was also part of our street maintenance program, and it was approximately $23,000 for the job across town. Also, pavement markings were done. They've been removed and replaced on 8th Street, West and Milner, and Elm and Hall between 8th and 27th. It was cost, let's see, there were 2 contractors that did these projects. One cost approximately $38,000, and Hall Street was completed in May by Road Safe at a cost of $48,000. And then North Vine Street, couple updates on that. So we have ordered signage. The one on the left is the Pardon Our Progress sign is kind of going to be like our advertising signage. There'll be 4 of those, one on the north side of the project, south side, and then on the off-ramps for the interstate. And then on the right is an example of some signs we're having for the businesses of their logos and arrows about how to find their businesses when we do begin construction. And then last night, we had our pre-construction meeting with John. It's about 30 minutes. I think I checked today, there's about 84 views so far that have happened. In addition to that, we set up a form on our on our website where people can ask specific questions for that project. They can also email the contractor themselves, Smoky Hill Construction, and kind of following up a little bit on the signage. So it is anticipated that they're going to start next week. They've already put up some variable messaging boards, the contractor, alerting people that the frontage road, the westbound frontage road, will be northbound traffic only between 32nd and 37th. We have flyers that we've made, fact sheets that we have emailed to the businesses, the Vine Street businesses, and then staff will go hand deliver copies as well. And we're also going to pass those out to other organizations like the Chamber. It's also available on our website. And then early next week, city staff will be installing those signs, so the logo signs and the Partner in Progress signs. Any questions?
I just want to touch base on that. Our community has done such a great job supporting businesses, small, big businesses, and hopefully with this interruption with the construction that community will still support these businesses up there, whether it's corporate or local businesses. I mean, you can see what the community can do for businesses now, and these guys are going to need your help. So, do everything you can to support these businesses. And, I appreciate the signs, and, I actually hope we go overboard on signage because we got to do everything we can to help those businesses up there. But thank you very much. Commissioner Melick, any
Nothing
comment?
this evening.
Burgess? Ruder?
I got nothing.
They got nothing.
You got to have something.
I gotta have something.
What do you got?
When did you think I had something? I was just gonna reiterate what you said, Sean. I think it's so very important that we stay focused on those businesses up north as we begin this progress, because it truly is progress. The signage that you have that's shown is excellent. I wouldn't be surprised if they would want that left up after it's all done, because it really is very identifying. And I really want to thank John for all your efforts. I know you've worked hard to keep this going smoothly. I think it's going to be a great addition to our community. We may have a little pain getting there, but progress sometimes has a little bit of pain associated with it.
I just want to touch base. I appreciate the county health kind of relaxing some of the restrictions. As a business owner, restaurant, bar, we appreciate it, but I truly believe most people in this town, because it's still out there, I think people are still going to do the right thing. It's shown how Ellis County has done a great job, and hopefully we can continue that. So, as we reduce our restrictions, which is nice that we can kind of, do what you want to do, but also we got to do the right thing for our customers and our community. So, and Becky, thoughts and prayers to you, for you to be here on the loss of your mother. We're all praying for you, and thank you for being here. You definitely didn't have to be here to see us, but thank you. So, absolutely. We're adjourned.